video, we're looking at more selection in Python using if, ELIF and else. If you haven't seen the Scratch version of this video, go watch that one first. Before we look at the ELIF command in Python, we're going to have to learn a little bit about data types. 3 data types I'm going to tell you about in this video are string, which is text, like this message we used in the previous video. There's integer. These are whole numbers, such as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And finally, we'll look at floating point numbers too. Floating point numbers are numbers with decimal points, like 4.13. Unlike Scratch, Python gets a little bit confused when it comes to data types. When you ask the user to enter any data, Python always thinks the data the user entered is a string or text. This can cause problems because if you want to add numbers that the user has entered, Python won't do this, as it will see the numbers that the user entered as if they're strings or text. You can't add text together. To fix this problem, we need to learn how to convert data. These are the command words for converting, and here's what they are. For string, you use str. For integer, you use int. And for floating point, you use float. Let's take a quick look at how these are used in Python. In this example, the program asks for the user's age. The user then enters their age, and this third line is how we convert the user's answer into an integer. Now here you can see how it's done for a string, although this isn't needed as Python automatically assumes the user's answer is always a string anyways. Now finally, here's how you convert a floating point number from the data the user entered. Let's now go back to selection in Python. So far, when it comes to selection in Python, we know that you use if and else. But what if you have more than 2 possible outcomes? What can we do then? Well, that's where ELIF comes. Here's the layout of selection in Python. When we use ELIF, first you have your if condition. Then indented under this will be the instructions for if that condition is true. Underneath that is the ELIF condition with instructions indented below the ELIF for if that ELIF condition is true. Then you have the else. There's no condition here. We just put else on its own, and below it are the instructions that get followed when none of the above are true. Also, I want to point out you can only use one if and one else, but you can use as many ELIFs as you want. So here's selection in Python using the ELIF condition. As you can see, we start off by asking the user for their age. They enter their age, and this data is converted to an integer in line 3. Then in line 4, we have the first part of our if statement where we check if they're 11 years old. If they are, the line directly underneath will be presented to the user. If not, we'll check the other possible condition using ELIF. Here we check if they've entered a number larger than 11. If this condition is true, the line underneath this will run. We go with the else line, otherwise, and the string in line 9 will be shown when the above are not true. Now, if we compare the Scratch blocks to the Python code, you'll see the code is almost a perfect match again. The only line in Python that doesn't exist in Scratch is this one here, because in Scratch you don't need to convert data types. And that's everything you need to know about selection in Python.